It's like violence is like sex. It's all about the build-up.
Did you get that?
Refn is a director whose works are heavily polarizing. There's no doubt that his films are unique though. His use of visuals to tell a story exceeds many other directors working today. Generally, his movies don't have much dialogue and are nearly devoid of exposition. Before going into his use of color, it's important to know that Refn is colorblind.
And she kept on trying the same two pairs on. And I was like, what is wrong with her? Can't you not see that it's the same pair of shoes? And my wife says, oh my God, you're colorblind.
Being interested in colors on opposite sides of the spectrum creates larger contrast and widens the emotional gap we feel. In Drive, he contrasts between the driver and Irene's worlds. Hers is warm, his is cold. She is portrayed as the princess, the damsel in distress, always in the shiny spotlight. He is often shown in the darkness, even when he's with her. But it doesn't always have to be this subtle. In The Neon Demon, when Jessie enters her first fashion show, she is drowned in this blue neon light. Blue here stands for purity, reflecting her soul that is still untouched by the new world she thrusted herself into. Moments later, the light changes to red, the color of passion, ego, and promiscuity. She starts to act in a suggestive and erotic way, kissing her reflections in the mirror. This metaphor is not subtle at all, but it works. Here are a few more examples of color use in his movies. Glamour, playfulness, lust, obsessiveness, insecurity, passion, and violence. Nicolas Winding Refn's stereotype is that he uses red a lot.
Their favorite movie of the
I
year,
haven't
along
seen
with The
so
Witch.
much red since I visited a ketchup factory.
Well, you tried.
Which isn't a surprise, as most of his characters are either violent people or manifestations of his violent desires, and red conveys passion and violence at the same time. Bronson is a crazy and dangerous person who is passionate about his insanity. Julian is someone who has problems with his incestuous past and is forced by his mother to resort to violence. The constant repetitive red palette in Only God Forgives suffocates Shiraz in the same way he is almost suffocated by his perverse sexual desires, aka hand fucking, and also the violent world around him. However, eventually the color use is just a technicality, a filmmaking way to tell a story, a violent story here, because violence is the main theme here and it deserves to be analyzed. Refn himself admitted that he likes to fetishize violence, and it seems that sometimes he goes very far to an erotic sense. If you've seen this scene, you'd understand how fucked up he is. But he doesn't only glamorize it, he also cuts to the reality of violence. The build-up is always portrayed in a celebratory and dreamlike fashion, but the direct result is always jarring. Think of the build-up as a foreplay. It's the essence of sex as Refn thinks. To him and most of us, it's the most passionate part. But the direct consequence of that fantasy always brings us back to real life, reminding us that reality is straightforward.
The more you're engaged in the build-up compared to the actual act itself. So it's the breaks in between that's the build-up to the you to the slicings, and then it's back, and then it's in again, you know.
There's no doubt that Refn is a very good filmmaker, even though I believe his screenplays need a bit of developing, but the way he portrays violence is a bright spot compared to current Hollywood projects. He's now working on a mini-series called Too Old to Die Young, and hopefully it'll be a refreshing addition to television.